Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulihi. Amma ba'du. I greet the Mali students and guests, the Mali guests, and listeners and others. Assalamu alaikum wa Ramadan Mubarak. Today we're looking at chapter 2, verse 34. We're going to go to verse 34 and continue with this theme of this this court that is taking place, this imagery of Allah, the angels, and Adam. So if we're imagining this movie, this scene, in this scene we have your Lord, Allah, as a character, even though mentally we cannot characterize Allah. But the influence and the will of Allah, recognizing and honoring that influence and that will, we cannot envision it in character form. And then we have the angels. All of this is taking place on the ontological stage. The angels, another group in the scene. And now the Khalifa shows up as Adam. Now we're going to be introduced to another character. This is chapter 2, verse 34. We're going to look at today al-Ma'ani, the science, ilmul ma'ani, the science of semantics or meanings, one of the branches of Balagha. Then tomorrow we will look at al-Bayan. Working on this, I got it confused of which one I was presenting today. I pulled up the wrong one. But we're looking at al-Ma'ani. Yes. So in this, stay with this theme, this pictorial that Scripture is giving. But it's not a physical, literal, these characters are not physical, literal characters. But we have these forces we're putting into character form. We'll see them in character form as we go. So we begin, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, وَإِذْ, and when, إِذْ, قُلْنَا, we said, لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ, and when we said to the angels, phrase, this is what we said, أُسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ, phrase. That's what we said. فَسَجَدُوا, here's a fa again. Got that fa again. فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ. We can say phrase because we're going to get a verb. Here's a verb. This is a verb. And then we start with the verb so that we'll break them into phrases. We see an action occur. Let's see what's happening with this action. That's what's happening with the next action. How does it respond to the first action? What about this action? How does it respond to this action? These are actions going on. One action is responding to another. As we read the phrases, learn to read the phrases, then pause and reflect with the phrases. Don't worry about the other tajweed rules and things. This is for comprehension. This is Mali for comprehension. Other people put in those marks of what have you. Hum rijalun, they are men. We're not rijalun, we are men. For the purpose of learning and comprehension. Don't try to do too many things. You don't know you're interacting with different schools of thought, and you don't know it, and you're throwing things here and there. So here, learn to read, learn to recognize nouns and verbs. When you see verbs, there's an act that's going on. See what's going on with this action, then reflect on it. So fasajadu, they prostrated. So what did they say? Usjudu li Adama, when we said to the angels. Let's go back. When we said kuluna lil malaikati, to the angels. These are some characters that's in the story. Usjudu li Adama, make prostration to Adam. Fasajadu, so they prostrated fast, right away. We know the fact is right away. It may have another function, but we know that in terms of time, they did not hesitate. It didn't say wa sajadu. It didn't say thumma sajadu. Fasajadu. Illa Iblis said, except Iblis. Here's another character that comes in now. He's coming into the story. We didn't have this character before. So we have another scene with a new character. Iblis. Bad. He refused. Wastakbara. Abad, he refused. That could be a phrase, a complete thought. It's a verb. We're going to get another verb. Wastakbara. So reflect. This act occurs, abad, and then this act occurs, wastakbara. Wakana min al-kafirin. That's the next phrase. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 phrases. Read the phrases. Read the phrases and reflect, connecting the phrases. The same as you learn to read letters and connect the letters and see a word. That word gave you a thought, an idea. You connect the word with another word grammatically. It gives you a thought, an idea. Now you're going to connect the phrases. Then you're going to connect the verses. This verse connects with the previous verse. Learn to try to hold it in your head. It's a lot. You start out, it's enough to say the word correctly, rather than trying to connect it with the next word. Many of the people we see, they can tell you about words. They can't hold a whole phrase connected to another phrase. Usually it's just a word defining a word, pulling a word out defined, not pulling out a whole phrase and looking at the whole phrase. So it's something we have to learn to do in reading comprehension. And then what does this whole verse have to do with the verse that came before? It's linking to the verse that came before. So now, in the reflection, from the beginning to endlessness, we acknowledged, this is that end. We acknowledge the angelic forces in nature. End. So, kuluna lil malaikati is acknowledging the angelic forces in nature. Submit with humility. Usjudu. Like one who prostrates with their forehead on the ground. Usjudu. To the morally sensitive forces. The angelic forces submit to the morally sensitive forces. And these morally sensitive forces now we're going to call Adam. It's going to take the name Adam. All submitted, fasajadu, except Iblis. He was too proud, Aban, and sought to be greater, istakbara, despite being essentially veiled. Al-Kafirin. It's a reflection, not a word-for-word translation, but as I start out in this book, you can see it. As we go, it may become a little more difficult in seeing word for word, but it follows the order. These reflections follow the order of the wording, the phrases. It follows the order of the phrases. It's not word for word, grammatically or definitive, word for word. That's why I call it reflection. I don't want to do the same thing that Yusuf Ali did. I'm not trying to do what they did, picked all of Yusuf Ali or whatever. It's a little different. The overall sentence type, looking at El Ma'ani now. The clause, what is Qulna lil malaikati, is khabarun. It is an informative statement. It's an informative statement. Used for tadkir, for reminding. When we say is Qulna lil malaikati, it's informative, but this is that's introduced in the statement is used for reminding. And ta'zeemun lisha'ni, and magnifying, ta'zeem, and magnifying the situation or the matter. This is the idea of id. Id is used for reminding and for magnifying the matter. That's a function of id. Not to supply unknown information, but to awaken reflection on Adam's honor. To awaken reflection on Adam's honor and Iblis's fall. This is the overall of the verse. The assertion where is and when links this scene to the earlier dialogue about Adam's Khalifa. If we go back to the beginning of this theme, we talked about the Khalifa. Now Adam becomes this Khalifa. Adam. And Adam is not so much the Adam, the individual. Creating Rabtun Siyaki, contextual linkage. This is showing another function of this id, meaning and function of id. We have this 4 or 5 more times, then through repetition, you should begin to recognize it and see it when you're reading the Qur'an, as you're reflecting on your reading. Yes. That makes the news continuous rather than isolated. So that's how we're reading Qur'an in context, verses in context, like you would read any book. Any book you read, if it were written, you read the one sentence in context with the next sentence. That makes a paragraph. You read the next paragraph in context with the previous paragraph. So you read Qur'an the same way. Context. Predication and word order. Now, in Qulna lil malaikati, the explicit pronoun for we, kulinad, this pronoun nad. We kulinad, we past tense. In the verb, it implies. Now, the function of this pronoun, there's implication here in this act of saying. And the implication is we. And it's used for ta'zim lil mutakallim, magnification of the speaker. So now, we know this question has come up. It's magnification of the speaker. Now, one of the Mahdi students, he's working on a book. He's working on a book, a short book dealing with the we. Looking at this concept, this idea of we. So here, perhaps you will find in his writing, the function of this is for magnification. Though the speaker is an individual, it's not a plural we, whereas it's a group of people saying we said to the angels. It's not Allah and the angels saying to the angels. So some will say this we means Allah and the angels when we is used in the Qur'an, giving it the plural sense. But this we is not a plural we. 1, 2, 3, 4, more than 3 people speaking. It's one person speaking, and it gives magnification to that person in terms of, in this motif, him being the leader of those that he's speaking to. In this sense, the creator of those he's speaking to. Leader, creator, what have you. And it's magnifying his position. The same as if we saw when the president of the United States will come out and say, we the people. But it's not we the people that's speaking. He's speaking. It's just one person that's talking. But he's using the we to magnify his position. That includes him and everyone. It magnifies his position than saying I. So we would say, As-salam alaykum. As-salam alaykum, you masculine plural. Peace be upon you masculine plural. But you're only speaking to the individual. Perhaps you are magnifying and showing honor to that individual. In some societies, cultures, the boy did not address his father in the singular. He addresses him in the plural. To magnify, to show honor to that person. When you want to show honor to the person, speak to them in the plural. You recognizing him and everything and all others that he represents. So speak to him in the plural. Yes. So this is ta'zim lil mutakallim, magnifying towards the one that you are speaking to. Yes, or the speaker, to magnify the speaker here, because it's in the first person. Heightening the gravity of the command that follows. That's why we're saying we. We're going a little deeper in the reading for comprehension, understanding. Now the prepositional phrase lil malaikati is advanced. It's advanced. In mention relative to the content of the command, which reflects taqdeem, We have taqdeem again, fronting. Ma haqquhu at-ta'khiri. What is normally deferred? It's in the real sense here. Haqquhu, its reality is deferred. So let's go and look and see what we're saying here. Let's see if we can. He says, وَقُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ. He's bringing this forward, لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ, instead of saying, when we said, أُسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ. أُسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ. This idea will come first. وَقُلْنَا, we said, أُسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ, to the angels. We said, prostrate to Adam, to the angels. But it's coming first. The angels are coming first. The Haqquhu is Adam. So we recognize in the angels before Adam in the way this is structured. For the sake of clarifying the addressees before revealing the command action, the commanded action. Instead of saying, Usjudu li Adam, we're going to clarify the addressees first. We say it to the angels in this whole scene. The command form and its functions. So the command here Usjudu is a verb of command. Those of you who are early in the grammar now. So when you get to Ma'ani, grammar is a prerequisite. You study grammar with Mali, you have to know at least, you have to know those 5 sheets well. I've gone through those 5 sheets well of grammar. It's just Mali system. In the Mali system, we don't use books for grammar. We have our own system that we have devised. And you go through those 5 sheets of grammar. Quranic Arabic is what we study. No other Arabic. Everything we're studying relates to the Qur'an. It's a Quranic, right now, a Quranic institution. So once you go through those sheets, now, and you're not wrestling with the grammar. The more advanced students, usjudu, they see the you masculine plural right away. You don't have to wrestle with it. So it's a verb of command. You see that directed to the angels, and is a prime example of a command for binding demand. That's the function of it. Al-amru li-talabi al-jazm. A command for binding the demand. Making the demand obligatory. Since the addressees are under complete obligation. So that's the function of this amru. Since they're under complete obligation, then we have this command to binding this. Binding is binding. You have to do it. It's binding. This request or talab this request or demand is binding on you. Here, the command, keep the language consistent for you. Also carries command for ennoblement. El-amru lit-takrim. With respect to Adam. So we said, lil malaikati usjudu, in saying this, one is binding upon you. We're making this binding upon you because you are under our control. You're under our leadership. If we think of the scene, the motif, that the command, the first command, belongs to Allah. Obey Allah and obey the messenger. And the first command, those who have been given the first command, if they are not commanding you based upon the first command, either take it back to Allah and His messenger, or you don't have to follow. They can be corrected. Subhanallah. I hope you understand. Just a little hint. So now, that's one reason you should obey, because you're under complete obligation to obey to the first command. Another reason you should obey, because you recognize now that the ennoblement of Adam, so out of respect for your own intelligence, based upon the knowledge that you have been given, then you should recognize the nobility that has been placed in Adam, to the point that we're saying, make prostration to Adam, submit, usjudu, submit to Adam, because the real point in the context is his honoring, more so than do what I tell you to do. The real point is his honor. And we know from the previous verse what gives Adam his honor. While the angels' obedience is a given. Because they are an entity, a force that does not disobey. And even in what we would think they're questioning, we found was not a questioning of disobedience. It was a question of exploratory. Give us more about this decision you're making. Yes, we can only follow what you command, but help us understand this. Our knowledge is limited. Help us understand why this creature and what we understand about this creature, based on the limited knowledge you have given us, we find this creature, are you sure this creature is worthy of being Khalifa? Expansion and brevity. This is a El-Ma'ani, expansion and brevity. You'll find in the El-Ma'ani literature. The phrase Fasajadu gives a concise report of a vast, awe-inspiring compliance, illustrating al-ijazu bil-ikhtisari. Brevity, al-ijaz. Brevity, short, to the point, which brevity is used in the command, even in the structuring of the words of command. That's why you have sukoon. The command is recognized by the sukoon. You cut the sound short. There's no a, e, u. You're cutting it short, brevity. It shows a sign of brevity. And here the waw aleph, for you masculine plural, you drop the noon. The sajadu, the noon is dropped, normally speaking, to bring about brevity. When you command someone, you cut the language short. Brevity and omission. Where the grandeur of the scene is left to listeners' imagination without additional detail. That's in any command, really. You don't command with a lot of detail. You cut it short. Usjudu, sajadu, fasajadu, fasajadu. Thus, fasajadu. Pardon me, not command. This brevity is shown in fasajadu without further wording. Pardon me. I went to the command. Let's go back. So, fasajadu, and it stops. That's the phrase, the first point. It doesn't say fasajadu li adam and go on. It's making it short. Fasajadu. This type of speech is for brevity. Brevity and omission. Just saying sajadu. He said to them to make sajda, and right away fasajadu. Nothing else needs to be said. Fasajadu. This type of brevity, meaning there's no added wording. There's no explanation. In contrast, the treatment of Iblis is expanded. Here, for the angels, fasajadu. That's it. Iblis is expanded. Illa Iblis aba wastakbara wa kana min al-kafirin. He could have just said illa Iblis, but it's expanded with wording, which exemplifies itnab. This is a term you want to remember. Itnab, a ma'ani term. Lit taqbih. It's amplification or attaching wording for censor. That's the function in this context for censorship. But it's adding wording for that reason. Sajadu, that's it. It didn't have to add words to show their obedience. Oh, they're good, their obedience, and this and that. They don't have to do that with angels. It's omitting all of that. That's understood. But here we have itnab. Words are added. Abad, wastakbara, wa kana min al-kafirin. By piling descriptions of refusal, abad, arrogance, istakbara, and disbelief, al-kafirin. exception and contrast. The structure fasajadu illa Iblis uses exception to create a strong contrast. This illa is the particle of exception. And it's using exception to create a strong contrast, manifesting exception to highlight divergence. El-istisna'i, the exception, li-ithari, for manifesting, bringing out, making clear, el-mufaraka, divergence. Between the angels' perfect obedience and Iblis' rebellion. Fasajadu, they prostrated right away. Fact, no hesitation. Fasajadu. Remember, the shorter the speech, the more powerful the speech, the stronger the speech. So when we say fasajadu, this language that we're using here is being used. First, the fat right away, and then sajadu without any other wording. It makes it strong in showing the angels' perfect obedience. They didn't think about it. But you have to understand, they're not told to prostrate until after Adam has been educated with the names. We went through a lot of the metaphor of the use of the word names. It's after Adam gained this endowment, a gift from Allah. Then, in another place, Allah says, wait until I have breathed into him of my spirit. Then, sajadu. At first, he doesn't have it. The angels say he doesn't have it. But he has a capacity, a potential, and a capacity. Wait until I have breathed into this potential, in this capacity of my spirit. Then, usjudu, fasajadu. Right away. Illa Iblis. Mentioning Iblis by name rather than a pronoun supports tasrihu ba'da al-ibham, explicit naming. Tasrihu, explicit, after implicit category, after there may be some kind of ambiguity. So that it's not that you won't get that idea, because he was amongst the angels, remember. Iblis was amongst the angels, perhaps posing himself as an angel. So he's in the group. He's in the council. You have to imagine he's in the council. Some will say, well, maybe it was Iblis, the one who was questioning, not the angels. It was Iblis. But even if you have this idea, notice, take a lesson of how Allah is teaching us. Instead of saying, if we extract this now and apply it to our conduct in in a operating in a sure council. And you are the convener or the chairman or what have you of the council. Don't be too quick to point out the one who's going to disagree and address that one. That way you have a sense of humility and the relationship you have with the whole council. We'll talk about some personal examples after we start talking, if it comes back up. So Allah is not, he knows. Allah knows. But look at how he's given Iblis a chance. All of them he's given a chance. And he's showing them. The angels could have said, but he knows Iblis' character. He knows how he is. But look at how he's handling the council. It's a note. It's Allah's teaching us leadership. But the explicit naming is after implicit category, making the deviant figure stand out in the listener's mind. That's what the language is doing. It's making it stand out. He's showing himself. As we're reading the story, we're watching the scene. We all see them. He's with the angels. He's posing himself as one of the angels. Yet he has something the angels don't have. But he's not pointed out. He reveals himself. And it comes out to the listener. Sequence of predicates for Iblis. So the order Abad Thumma Istakbara, he has Thumma here. It's Abad Wastakbara. But now, why would he say Thumma? Let's go to the sentence and come back. Why, if I don't remember, ask, why is this Thumma? Didn't it read Abad Wastakbara? Let's bring the verse. That's a rhetorical question in a sense, but why did he say that? That's to catch our attention. What is this scholar trying to say? Abathumma istakbara tartibu al-af'alu, the sequence of actions ala hasabi at-daruj, tadarruj, by escalating or the escalation of al-ma'na, the meaning, ordering or the sequence of actions by escalating meaning. First, simple refusal. Then, entrenched arrogance. So what is he saying here? In the lesson we're saying about wastakbara. Now, this wa shows sequence we said. Fa, wa, and thumma. Wa, fa, the action, one thing occurs in the sequence, taratib. In the sequence, taratib, this action, abad, can occur first, then istakbara occurs. Abad, then istakbara. Or Istakbara occurs first, and then aba. Or they both occur at the same time. So why in itself, if you're reading, why in itself doesn't give the hint. We don't know which one it is. It doesn't tell you this way. Maybe by context you can tell. But fa, just the letter fa, you tell right away. It shows you thumma, you know right away. And then, even in the sequence, is there time or no time? Is it right after or does it take time? What it doesn't show you any of that. So here, what the commentator here wants to give the idea of this way here is thumma, meaning he aba, there's refusal. Then, with time, relative time, istakbara, he becomes arrogant. Now, here, looking at Qur'an, arrogance is defined by refusal. And sometimes we mistaken what arrogance is. It's by, and this refusal is really occurred because, as we have discovered, there's either a limitation in knowledge, of knowledge, or there's veiled knowledge. You're being veiled. So really, it's not the enlightened person that's arrogant, as we seem to indicate, wants to indicate in our social life. It's the veiled person who thinks they have this knowledge of the one who's enlightened. And they refuse to study, look, investigate, observe that they become enlightened also. They want to be equal to the one enlightened. Or think that they're more enlightened. They refuse. Then they become istakbara, form 10, making themselves bigger than they really are, seeking to be bigger. This is the basis of arrogance in the Qur'an. There's refusal, and then there's this idea of trying to be bigger. We can discuss later. Concluding with وَكَانَ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ in the itnab, extra wording. It uses kana and naqisa. Kana naqisa is the incomplete was, or the, we call it it's a verb, a defective verb. Or it's defective and incomplete in the sense that it's also ongoing. To indicate thubutu, well, it's the qarar. So it has the aleph that makes it incomplete in the sense of defective. It's not solid. And also, we dealt with this kind of, he was, he is, and he will be. This kind of creature. This type of creature we're looking at. It established settled quality that's in this creature. So kana is used. He was, he is, and he will be. This type of creature. So we're extracting this from the Qur'an as we apply it to our social life. We're coming from the high spiritual, ontological scene of the council, our spiritual side. Then we want to bring it to the social. Man in his spiritual life and social life. And this I'm trying to show in my reflection and commentary of the first 30th of the Qur'an that will be published. In the first book I wrote, I felt it was too spiritual. And maybe because of the verses, chapter 65 to 70. Maybe those verses were like that. But in Al-Baqarah, we get more of the spiritual and the social implications. So this type of character, he was like this, he is like this, he will be like this. Portraying disbelief as a fixed state, not a momentary lapse. That's his nature. That has become his nature. We have to be careful that that jinn in us does not become Iblis. This scene answers the earlier angelic query in chapter 2, verse 30, and thus exemplifies connecting sentences or verses in line with context. So let's put verses here. Because really they are verses, they're signs. We call verses, but they're signs, connecting signs. They may not all be sentences. Where Adam's teaching of the names is followed by visible proof of his higher rank. The movement from Adam's instruction to angelic acknowledgement to commanded prostration to Iblis rebellion shows a carefully graded progression of meanings when we're looking at context, connecting with context. That ilmul ma'ani would classify under tadarruj al-ahwali, the graduation, degrees of states within discourse. The degrees ahwali of states fil khitab, in discourse. You have instruction, acknowledgement, commanded or commands based upon instructions and acknowledgement, and that's also rebellion. And Allah teaching us how to function. If we take this scene and put it in the classroom, how to function under these conditions. It's a good lesson. The comment. Now, the angelic forces prostration, the prostration of the angelic forces. These are forces. To Adam, another force. signifies their submission. This Adam is not a physical being. It's a force. These are forces operating in the spiritual realm. It signifies their submission, humility, obedience to him, and readiness to serve him. Iblis is presented as a being of illusory power, distinct from those limited, though he's limited also, but it's distinct from those limited. His illusory power is distinct from those limited to perceiving meanings through forms. These forces obey either out of compulsion, which we discussed, or for the love of Allah's pleasure, aligning with Adam's honor and intellect. It's one or the other that we saw in the Al-Ma'ani explanation. Iblis is classified as a jinn, which places him in the lower spiritual realm and earthly forces. The lower spiritual realm, which we're looking at, earthly forces. He performs a role similar to that of an angelic leader, although he can operate in the realm of angels. He is still fundamentally a jinn, possessing a role that angels cannot fulfill. Angels cannot question matters, alter their forms, or dismantle themselves. They respond to Allah's commands without reasoning or questioning. That's why we're saying that was more of exploratory than refusal. In contrast, human beings can reason and question. Another force. The human being is another force. These are forces before physical manifestations, paralleling the forces of Iblis. The human beings can reason and can question, and Iblis can reason and question. So they're both intellects, we could say, that can reason and question. However, humans possess moral sensitivities. Water. Not just water, clay, other properties. Where we'll find Iblis is going to define himself by the property of just fire. But the human being has the property of fire also. But it also has the property of water. Now, he's not all water, but he has water. That lead to compassion. Consequently, Iblis is not an angel by nature, but rather by circumstance. His pride arises from exceeding his boundaries by engaging in intellectual concepts beyond his understanding. That's why I'm saying even Iblis is limited, particularly concerning universal judgments. As a result, he is eternally veiled from philosophical and spiritual illumination, this creature, especially from the light of unity. He was, he is, and he will be. This type, this kind of creature. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa Ramadan Mubarak.